We are just one ship. And an old one at that. But here we are. All that we may have left are those standing beside us. And where you see one old ship, I see home. And that is always worth fighting for.
Hey people, Mark here, and welcome to another ship breakdown. There was a longer wait for this one than usual, and not just because of the substantial lore for this ship, but because the original ship encompassed the full story of the Spirit of Fire, which proved to be far too much for one video. Sources used are Warfleet, the Encyclopedia, Mythos, Halo Wars Timeline Events, Halo Wars Genesis, Halo Wars 2, Halo Escalation, Halo Tales from Slipspace, Halo Shadows of Reach, Halo Smoke and Shadow, Halo Renegades, Point of Light, Divine Wind, and Halo Loot Crates. Here we go. The Spirit of Fire is one of very few hero ships focused on and romanticized in the Halo universe, and for good reason. As a ground support ship with the UNSC's domination in the ground arena, the Spirit of Fire is uniquely situated to fill the role from a narrative and lore standpoint. But before we talk about the Spirit of Fire, let's go back. Back before the Banished on the Ark in Zeta Halo, before the Covenant's War of Annihilation, before the Insurrection, and before the Domus Diaspora. Following the end of the interplanetary wars within the Sol system, the UEG found itself with an absolutely massive population, a huge military, and no enemies to fight. Their saving grace from these issues wouldn't come for another 121 years, with the invention of the Shaw Fujikawa Translate engine in 2170. Even then, it wouldn't be until 2362 that the first colony ships would be built. The ludicrously large Odyssey led the charge in the Domus Diaspora, the most rapid expanse of human space to date. The ship would be deconstructed to form Reach, which led to the world becoming the second most populous and prosperous planet ever settled, after Earth, of course. She was accompanied by hundreds of colony ships, both of the Euphrates and Phoenix class. Designed by Halifax Spaceworks, the Phoenix class was designed to both terraform worlds and construct the necessary infrastructure to form a suitable home away from home. The ships could establish a self-sufficient colony in just 6 months, but on more wild planets they tended to stay in orbit or work as a pipeline from Earth to the colony. At the end of their jobs as colony builders, some Phoenixes would land on the planets they found and be stripped for parts. Like Skidbladnir, the founding ship of Harvest, the Phoenix class is 2,500 meters, about 8,200 feet long, and weighs a chunky 44 million metric tons, making it the second largest civilian human ship ever made, second only to the Odyssey, which, based on this one image we see of her, is absolutely massive. The cargo bays are cavernous in scope, meant for storing the prefab structures like homes and government buildings, necessary equipment to set them up, as well as atmosphere processors for terraforming worlds that aren't quite ready for human biology. The observation deck allows for a limited number of crew members to view the world they plan on inhabiting, and it usually isn't stuffed full of scanners and analysis equipment. The recreation block of the Phoenix class includes what looks like a stadium for sports events. It also has hobby workshops for enrichment, education terminals for the children of the massive crew and complement, and aeroponics farms, which is a method of growing crops in an air or mist environment without any substrate, so no soil. Tidy. This area helps stave off the amount of bone and muscle loss as effective reduced gravity. Now, the UNSC has access to artificial gravity technology, and it appears to be able to simulate the gravity or at least close to that of Earth's. And coupled with the fact that with cryogenics, people in space would only likely be experiencing the effects of lessened gravity for a few weeks at a time at the very most, I wouldn't be too worried that the crew of the Spirit of Fire would turn into the populace of Axiom anytime soon. Underslung to the Phoenix class are 10 D-20 Heron heavy lift vehicles. These are meant to deploy the infrastructure and prefab buildings both stored in the cargo bays and, in the case of the Spirit of Fire, manufactured in the automated war factories. Large and square in shape, and utilizing VTOL flight systems for precision drops, the Herons are responsible for dropping in colony starter units. These are constructed by Polycrete and powered by a small hydrogen reactor, and form the basis for fire bases, which we'll talk about later. Some Phoenix-class colony ships also carried with them underslung Star Charter-class colony support ships. These were used as subsistence hubs, so early footholds on wild worlds. They also help in terraforming, so they're most likely fitted with large atmosphere processors themselves. They also work as a method of establishing multiple cities at once during the colonization process, because not all colonies were meant to be as rural as Harvest. Notably, Meridian. Colonized in 2531, humanity settled Meridian with 139 vessels carrying 70,003 colonists, most of which were from France on Earth. 4 of those ships were Star Chargers, which landed on the continent of Turones. They used these support ships to settle suitable locations before moving on to the moon's supercontinent, which would become the planet's capital. When Meridian was attacked in 2551, as one of the last colonies to be attacked by the Covenant, a handful of the ships were ordered to hide on the other side of Hestia 5, the planet that Meridian orbits. After the war, these ships moved back to the partly glassed moon to begin recolonization efforts, one of which, Meridian 5 Alpha, was critically damaged during the created conflict, forcing the resettlement of the moon to be delayed. The Liang Dortmund Corporation, which was responsible for managing the recolonization effort, decided that it would be more efficient to move their base of operations from Meridian Station to Darkstar Station, rather than clean up after the Guardian Cortana activated there. The Phoenix-class colony ship has no complement or armament in any militaristic sense. Some notable ships of this class include the Phoenix herself, the lead ship. The CAA First Reverie, a ship commissioned by the Colonial Administrative Authority, was a Phoenix-class built at a Mars shipyard. It joined the nearly 100 ships launched from Luna to colonize nearby systems during the Domus diaspora. It housed up to 11,000 colonists and utilized Heron dropships, either in support of or in lieu of Star Charters. In-universe, as of 2554, a scale model replica of it was featured in Outpost Discovery. The UNSC Skid Bladnir, as mentioned earlier, was the colony ship that founded Harvest. It stayed in orbit for over a year, and once colonization was complete, it landed on the planet and was scrapped for parts. And as we well know, Harvest was the first to fall to the Covenant hegemony. Some others that may have been Phoenix classes, but were not described specifically enough to classify them as such, were the CAA Caspa and the CAA Butterworth, and then of course the UNSC's oldest, most resilient ship, the UNSC Spirit of Fire, which we'll cover in a moment. But first, a disambiguation. The CAA, the Colonial Administration Authority, is a supplementary governing body that manages the outer colonies alongside the UEG. The CAA's equivalent of the UNSC was the CMA, the Colonial Military Authority, Space Military Police, meant to be on the lookout for insurrectionist forces. But as the UNSC further accepted the Carver findings later on, the CAA and the CMA seem to have become more and more redundant, as the UEG itself simply extended the long arm of the UNSC and started slapping down innies left and right, probably at Oni's behest. But I'm curious why any colony ships would be designated UNSC pre-2521 refit. I mean, they're civilian colony ships. It makes sense that the CAA would run all of them, and yet the lead ship and the skid marker were both UNSC, despite having zero military application. Anyway, the Phoenix class represented a turning point for the people of Sol, and ushered in a new era of expansion and progress for them. Thanks to the slipspace drive, the Phoenix class, alongside the other colony ships, managed to secure humanity's future. I wonder if it would be good for anything else later.
Understood. Archer missiles inbound.
The UNSC Spirit of Fire had a typical run as a colony ship before its military refit in 2521. 48 years prior, the ship was built and contributed to the founding of the colonies Arcadia and Verent, transporting colonists as well as equipment such as hydroponics, atmosphere generators, and prefab schools. In 2520, directly following the founding of Verent, Captain Alexander, the final civilian commander of the Spirit, retired. The UNSC requisitioned it right after, and the next year, in 2521, gave the ship a full overhaul to be used as a ground assault support vessel, and command was given to an accomplished officer, Captain James Cutter. The ship would later take part in multiple engagements, assisting in the Harvest Campaign, the Battle of Arcadia, and acting as the sole UNSC force in the Battle of Trove and the Second Arc conflict, at least the latter half of it. The 2521 overhaul included adding an armament and Titanium A armor, hangars for darter cargo dropships and other orbital transfer vehicles, automated war factories, and an upgraded fusion drive. The second set of upgrades took the engines of the UNSC Calcutta, a scuttled UNSC destroyer of unknown class, and strapped them to the Spirit. This increased output by 37%. Serena upgraded the bridge, and somehow managed to set up Anders' new lab on the observation deck, complete with multiple new scanners and lab modules that only Anders knows the uses of. Both Serena and Isabel made significant safety and usability improvements to the robotic factory lines, which is probably how the Spirit is able to construct the new vehicles and base upgrades that Isabel provided them with.
Get those guns back inside.
Multiple breaches in Sector 12. Jennings, get those hatches closed.
Where are we on that hull breach in Sector 17?
ETA 60 seconds.
Engineering. Show me the contact point.
Starboard guns down.
Captain. Hard to do my best work like this. Can't we fight back?
Carrier, just release more banshees.
Are we fighting back?
We are, Professor. Let me handle that.
The Spirit employs a 22 B6R3 MAC battery, which houses three 530cm MAC cannons of the same designation. I can't say much about the strength of these relative to other MACs, but the sheer quantity of them is how the ship is able to fire in such rapid succession, with MACs being notorious for long reload times. Not much is known about the 1011A2R1 naval coil guns. The only use we've ever seen of them is on the Spirit of Fire. They were apparently effective enough if the Spirit was able to use them to escape a CPV-class destroyer in close quarters. The Spirit also had 24 of the goated M42 Archer missile pods. Now, the difference between M42 and M58 Archer missiles isn't really clear, but whatever improvements they made with the so-called long-range anti-ship M58s clearly weren't enough to make them more functional or viable than their predecessors. We see these show up more prominently in newer ships like the Poseidon class, the Infinity, than their M58 counterparts. The Spirit also has 40 M800 Rampart Point defense guns, an older variant of the M870s found on stalwart Sharons and Stridents, and the M910s found on the Halcyon and Autumn classes. Unlike the M42 Archer missiles, though, these were pretty much phased out universally, and in fact were almost outdated when they were originally fitted, as the M870 Ramparts are fitted on every other large ship built before the Phoenix that used Ramparts. But the ship-to-ship armament is not the star of the show on a ground support ship. That would be the crew and complement.
All that we may have left for those standing beside us, and the duty that defines us, battle after battle, fighting side by side, together. Where you see half a crew, Isabel, I see family, courage, and 1,000 heroes who swore to fight their way through hell before they'd ever turn their backs and run.
The Spirit of Fire houses 11,350 personnel in total, with the crew alone consisting of 3,500 naval personnel and 1 UEG citizen, Anders. I'll go into more detail on the crew's stories at a later date, but they do need some attention as the Spirit is an assault support ship and thus the complement is immensely important to her operations. Captain James Gregory Cutter has captained the Spirit of Fire from the moment it was requisitioned by the UNSC to the most recent sighting of the ship in 2560. Serena was the shipboard AI present on the Spirit for her entire 7-year lifespan, implementing several upgrades and performing thorough maintenance over that period. After the Spirit of Fire emerged from a mysterious slipspace jump 28 years after being lost with all hands, Isabel was discovered at an abandoned UNSC research outpost on the Ark. She supplied the crew with all the relevant data they missed out on in the past 3 decades, including the Human-Sangheili Alliance, the end of the war, and the Halo conflicts. She also supplied them with blueprints for newer equipment, such as Kodiaks, Nightingales, and Jackrabbits, and both Mantis and Colossus exosuits. Seth is an AI construct that is also on board the Spirit as of 2559, beginning service sometime before that. It's unknown if Seth is a smart AI, but it's unlikely considering his implied age and lack of any avatar. But he's there, and he's named Seth, which is a cute name. I like it. If there's any Seths out there, you've got a cute name. Professor Anders is the ship's sole civilian crew member. Apparently, studying under Catherine Halsey, she was recommended by the Doctor to be brought on by the UNSC as a theoretical xenobiology consultant, which led to her induction and abduction by one Sergeant John Forge. A quite recent addition to the team, Oni Lieutenant Veda Lopez serves as the leader of the Ferrets, a covert, unconventional warfare team of Spartan 3s, including Gamma Company Olivia, Gamma Company Ass, and Gamma Company From 2520 to 2530, a young Commander Terrence Hood served on the Spirit of Fire, before being transferred to Roman Blue, a Halcyon-class destroyer, a year before the Spirit went missing. After failing to retrieve the Spirit of Fire's log beacon, he holds himself responsible for the loss of the Spirit to this day. As for the naval officers on board, Lieutenant Commander Alice Vallum is the chief engineer in charge of maintaining the ship, here pictured as a report given after performing a full diagnostics check with Isabel. We'll cover that in the next video. Someone named Blake served on the bridge crew, rank and surname unknown. Commander Theo Figueroa was present during the Harvest campaign, and was assigned as the commanding officer of Epsilon Base by Cutter. Epsilon Base is the map Terminal Moraine in Halo Wars 1. Lieutenant Green was a junior officer and bridge crew member in 2531 and likely still is. Andrew Prescott is the former chief engineer before being superseded by Vallum for some reason, as told by this UNSC press corps article. Drone Recon Supervisor O'Sullivan was the one to alert Cutter when banished Huragok were seen idling over one of Colony's banished outposts before Operation Spearbreaker. And Chief Medical Officer O'Neill, who suggested burning all the Flood corpses after the Battle of Trove. A good instinct, but ultimately pointless as the infection is parasitic, not viral. For other crewmen, there's Dr. Andrew Sandmore. He was a doctor on board who apparently enjoyed outdoor climbing, the opera, and oversaw the UNSC's youth training camp on Reach. Johnson was another guy, just a guy, I guess.
Johnson, get those guns back inside.
Lulu Hershey was a nurse on board. James was this guy in the bridge. Yvain was this guy, and Mary was this gal. Of the Marines on board, Sergeant John Forge is the most notable. Father of one, Lucy Orion Forge, with his wife Lane, with whom his relationship was strained. After a stint in the military police, Forge was assigned to the Spirit of Fire, where the captain would come to trust him so thoroughly that he was afforded far more authority than his rank normally would have allowed. Lieutenant Colonel Morgan Cansano was an insurrectionist leader turned UNSC Hellbringer, and now she leads the Firestorm battle group. She hasn't altered much in her views and remains unorthodox, especially for an officer. What's possibly more unorthodox is her choice in tactics, utilizing modified warthogs and cyclopses with flamethrower attachments. The only thing uncontroversial about her is her immense respect for Cutter. Captain Jenkins was a Marine who was a part of Battle Group Phi, alongside the Spartan Kaichi 047, and reported to Cutter the presence of Covenant forces on Harvest, without any notable bases or logistical assistance, which was out of the ordinary, which disturbed him. Communications Officer G. Peterson led a recon team scouting the quarantine zone around the ruins of High Charity. As pictured here, Privates Wilson, Wood, and Papadakis are all privates whose named cryo-chambers were shown on the Spirit. Private G.R. Scott is a marksman, and on Installation 00, he and his team were assigned to scout an area with several power nodes that would be a boon for the Spirit's forces. The group were stalked by 4 banished Sangheili Rangers, until they split up and were picked off one by one. Scott reprogrammed his spotter drone, these little floaty dudes we see in Halo Wars alongside the snipers, and moved it away from himself to draw fire. Scott was able to take the elites out from range and escape, collecting his team's dog tags and returning to the Spirit of Fire. Sunray 1-1 is a small team of ODSTs that are a part of Boomerang Company. Led by Major Vaughn, the CO of Boomerang, the team consists of Warrant Officer Quinn, the technical liaison, Petty Officer Gruss, the hospital corpsman, Corporal Turpin, the drone operator, and Lance Corporal Sparks, cool name, the designated marksman. These guys were instrumental in Operation Spearbreaker, which we'll cover again at a later date. The Spirit has had a Spartan presence on board ever since its deployment as a military vessel. Due to his father dying of Boren syndrome, an ailment we only know to be caused by the treatments done on Orion Project's test subjects like Johnson, it's heavily implied that Sergeant Forge is at least half Spartan 1, colloquially known as a Spartan 1.1. I'd say it's more accurate to say Spartan 0.5, but whatever. The most recognizable Spartans on board are easily Red Team, which consists, currently at least, of Commander Jerome 092, Senior Chief Petty Officer Alice 130, and Senior Chief Petty Officer Douglas 042. Their most recent additions are 2 of the remaining 3 Spartan 3s of Gamma Company, including Ash G099 and Olivia G291. We haven't seen them work with Red Team just yet, but boy, I'm excited too. The Spirit of Fire's mascot, and true captain, was Spock, a cat of unknown breed. Here he can be seen chilling on the bridge, his home turf as the captain. No one's ever mentioned him dying, and Serena never mentions disposing of him, so the implication is that Spock is also put into cryo. At least that's what I choose to believe.
Early lunch for council.
The complement of the Spirit of Fire is larger and more detailed than any other ship we know of, and we can chalk that up to the fact that it's crucial to the ship's function. An assault support ship with no complement is useless. That said, I'm not sure if the exact numbers given represent pre-Harvest campaign or during the Second Arc conflict, and it really doesn't matter, considering the war factories can pump out dozens to hundreds more of almost all the vehicles and equipment listed below. The Spirit carries 6,000 UNSC Marines from the 45th Marine Regiment and its 13th Infantry Battalion, which includes Foxtrot Company as well as Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie platoons. 2,000 UNSC Army soldiers are on board, as well as 1,000 ODSTs in the form of the 9th Shock Troopers Battalion, which includes Boomerang Company and their 1st Platoon, Command Squad Sunray, and Lotus Squad. Not to mention the Firestorm Battle Group, which is led by Lieutenant Colonel Morgan Kinsano, as I said. She's armed with her own personal customized Cyclops, which we'll get to later, and leads numerous Hellbringers infantrymen. Blizzard Squad was an experimental fire team consisting of numerous cryo troopers. The Spirit also has a few specialized Marines in the form of Extractor Marines, armed with some weird kind of modified railgun that can suck the life out of targets. Some Marines were deployed with more heavily armored BDUs than normal, drawing fire from their more lightly armored comrades. And Reactive Marines, which are quite novel. Their squad is encased in a one-way bubble shield, protecting them from all small arms fire. The Spirit has room for 70 D-77 Pelican dropships to deploy them all, as well as 178 M12 Warthog all-terrain vehicles, which also come in multiple variants. The typical M12 Warthog chain gun variant, the M12 G1 Gauss variant, the M12 Warthog Flame variant, courtesy of Kinsano and the Firestorm Battle Group, and the M12 Warthog Fireball variant. I forgot to mention in the original recording, but there are also Rocket Hogs and armored-up chain gun variants. The Spirit also has numerous Scorpion tanks, including at least 93 M808B Scorpions, numerous M808S Scorpions, and some Lockdown Scorpions. These are a modified version of the M808S Scorpion, fitted with a mine plow, heavier armor, and energy shielding. Numerous fronting Mark IIIB Cyclops exosuits, which can repair the ship while in flight, as well as reactive Cyclops variants, which work similarly to Reactive Marines, and the previously mentioned Kinsano Custom Cyclops, which is equipped with dual flamethrowers on either arm and an energy shield. Numerous M850 Grizzly battle tanks, which have been lightly modified in some way by Sergeant Forge. Numerous M88 Bison armored personnel carriers, many of which have been modified by Serena to project a cryogenic area of effect, slowing and freezing enemies. Numerous M9 Wolverines to protect ground troops from aerial attacks. Numerous SP-42 Cobras, which are mobile stationary coil gun turrets meant for taking on enemy vehicles and halting them in their tracks. Numerous XRP-12 Gremlins, an electronic warfare vehicle that disperses a targeted EMP field. A fragile thing, the Gremlin needs an escort to be effective. Numerous M312 Elephants that can be used as a mobile forward operating base at a pinch, even more forward than the deployable fire bases themselves. Many B-65 short swords, which are used as a delivery system for all kinds of bombing runs, excelling in ground support and airstrikes. Hundreds of AV-14 Hornets, which we're very familiar with, light VTOL aircraft meant for taking out ground troops. The Spirit now also includes Trooper Hornets, which boast much thicker armor than a typical variant. Numerous AC-220 Vultures, which are heavier anti-ground aircraft. Lots of AV-22 Sparrowhawks, which work similarly to Hornets. 600 Soev drop pods of the M88-23 variation. 10 of the previously discussed D-20 Heron heavy lift dropships, but instead of colony startup kits, these drop fire bases, which use the quick construction features of a colony startup kit to make vehicles, weapons, ammo, etc., as well as facilitate the construction of military-focused structures, all of which would be better armored than the typical human building. 6 Albatross cargo dropships for dropping loads too heavy for a Pelican but too light for a Heron. and 56 D-82 Darter cargo dropships. The lightest variant of dropship, these quickly transport resources from the ground to the Spirit of Fire, which in turn puts the materials to work on the assembly line, manufacturing whatever it is the ground forces request. In 2559, Isabel added these new designs to the Spirit's repertoire, including new D-81 LRT Condors. These are essentially elongated Pelicans with more space for troops and a slipspace drive, although the Spirit lacks the capability to build that component right now. They also deliver turrets and fire bases when Herons aren't being used for whatever reason. G-81 Condor gunships are a powerful heavy anti-ground gunship created by Isabel, outpowering any other UNSC air-to-ground aircraft. EV-44 Nightingales are VTOL support craft that deploy drones to treat infantry and repair vehicles and equipment, even in the midst of battle. Trooper Nightingales, like Trooper Hornets, differ only in that they have much thicker armor than standard versions. ZAV-48 Frost Ravens are experimental craft first theorized by Serena, utilizing a cryo-ray to freeze targets, afterwards using seismic missiles to shatter the frozen enemies. Unlike the Cyclops, the Hrunting Yggdrasil Mark IX, or the Mantis, are meant to be used against enemy infantry and vehicles, rather than buildings. The Mantis makes up for having less firepower than typical armor like a Scorpion, with increased maneuverability and regenerating energy shields. The Hrunting Yggdrasil Mark II-J Colossus exosuit. I don't think I need to say anything here. Jackrabbits. These new scout vehicles are probably faster, lighter, and cheaper to make than a Warthog just based on looking at them. M650 Mastodons are a large armored personnel carrier. These have huge troop compartments, which allows them to carry more heavy infantry like Spartans or Hellbringers with all their equipment. Jerome suggested to make heavy use of these in the Second Arc conflict, both to reduce unnecessary casualties and because they're unlikely to receive reinforcements anytime soon. And finally, M400 Kodiaks. They're my favorite. They're mobile stationary artillery cannons. I love them. I just love them. I'm here and there with the Spirit. On the one hand, I'm extremely attached to it, and its utility is perfect for the UNSC's heavy ground focus. The UNSC should have invested in more of these than as many Sharons as they did. But on the other hand, it doesn't really look all that special or do anything to make me go, wow, what a cool ship. On the one hand, that's great, both from a lore functionality and narrative standpoint. The ground troops and the crew are the star of the show. But on the other hand, let's be honest, there's nothing particularly cool about the Spirit herself, other than her awesome name and abbreviation. The Spirit of Fire. The Spirit. In listening back to this while editing, I think I might be comparing the Spirit of Fire a little too closely, though, to the Normandy from Mass Effect. Although no Halo hero ship, that is, can be really compared to the Normandy in terms of coolness. Not yet. Now the Phoenix-class colony ship, that's a different story. I love it for what it is, and it's weird that I have this differentiation in my head. I can't really think of a better design for a colony ship. But that's not to say this one is great or anything, or bad, it just is. It just looks like a ship. But the lore surrounding both the Phoenix class and the Spirit is really cool, especially that of the crew. There are lots of weird, obscure little sources like Halo loot crates giving insight to the backstories of some of these characters. And the tie-in to Kelly Gay's Orion Forge series is great, I love those books. Red Team is awesome, and I think I'm not alone in saying Jerome would make a suitable player too in a Halo Infinite campaign DLC in 2525, assuming it'll come out that soon. Cutter is absolutely perfect as an inspiring leader who we find out in Escalation is actually the one who Lord Hood looked up to for guidance in his day. I love that Cutter's resilience and confidence in his men has, in turn, resulted in the most potent fighting force in the entire UNSC, like, hands down. With their feats as a unit, the forces of the Spirit of Fire, I think they'd probably even give the Master Chief a little bit of a challenge in combat effectiveness. Leagues better than the Infinity ever was at conducting independent operations and just generally getting shit done. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching. I should have a video up on my gaming channel soon, so if you like my voice, I don't know, you could go check that out. As I said in the beginning, a sub is immensely helpful. Y'all are enabling me to do things I've always wanted to do, and it is surreal. But that's all I've got for now. Peace. Watch the ad. Don't skip the ad. Don't you dare, don't skip it. I want money.
Captain?
The other teams are clear?
Yes, sir. ETA to the Spirit of Fire is 5 minutes.
Bring up the map. We have a lot of work to do until she gets back.
Aye, Captain.
The Spirit of Fire has a cat. That makes it cooler than the Normandy. Normandy doesn't have any animals. They got a dog? Then the Normandy'd be cooler.